We'll do a review of the Maimer, וקבל היהודים אשר החלו לעשות, which the Rebbe said on Tuesday was Purim Cotton Tafshin Lamed Ches. This is the 8th Maimer over here in the Maimorim Mulukotim and Chelik Gimel. And later on, it says in the notes that they printed it in the Kuntras Purim Cotton in Tafshin Lamed Ches. The date over there in the Kuntras is Erev Shabbos Kodesh Mevorchim, or the Sheni Hey Tafshin Lamed Ches, when it was printed. So it was said in Purim Cotton Lamed Ches, and they printed it before the Shabbos Mevorchim. All right, we're doing a side. וקבל היהודים אס אשר החלו לעשות. So the pasuk says that the Yidden accepted upon themselves during the time of Purim that which they have began to do. What is this talking about? So the previous Rebbe, the Nesiderenu, explains b'ma'amorei hayodua, and the known Maimer, she'amorei b'purim cotton tofreish peizayin b'Moscow. He said this on Purim Cotton in the year Tofreish Peizayin in 1927. This was in Moscow. In Moscow, he gave it then. So this was done in Peizayin. From Peizayin, it's 50 years. This is the 51st year. So the Rebbe says, Asher shono zu hi hascholas yovel hasheni lamirosoi, that this year begins the second yovel. It was past 50 years until Tafshin Lamed Zayin. This is Tafshin Lamed Ches, starts the second yovel from the time that he said the Maimer. So what did he explain this pasuk? That the ato bisman hagolus, that now during the time of exile, and that was also in the time of Purim, they were in exile at the time. So now in the time of exile, hem kiblu mashe hechelu kvar bisman de matan Torah. So then they accepted that which they have already begun in the time that the Torah was given. The beginning was when the Torah was given, and now they sort of accepted it, what they have started then. And this is Ukemamorim Zichroinu Levracha. It's like the sages of blessed memory said, Al Pasik, and the other Pasik over there in the Megillah, over there it says, Kimu v'kiblu haYehudim v'chulu. They accepted, they sustained, and they accepted the Yidden then in Purim, sustained and accepted. So what the Gemara says, our sages tell us that the Kaimu Ato b'mei Achashverosh, that now in the days of Achashverosh they sustained, they fulfilled that Mashe Kiblu Kvar Bizman the Matan Torah, that which they have already accepted the Matan Torah. So Kimu v'Kiblu HaYehudim. The Kiblu HaYehudim was before Bizman Matan Torah. Now they sustained Kimu, they fulfilled that which they accepted. So this is, the Maimer asks, the Friedrich Rebbe Medayik was a Bahamaimer. So the Maimer, he questions this. The Lecheira Hu Davar Nifla. This seems to be something wondrous. Now the Rebbe is going to explain the previous Rebbe. The Maimer says this is wondrous. He's not just saying there's a question here, but he uses the language, it's wondrous. The language of wondrous means that it's a very powerful, it's just a totally not understood. It's not just a question. The Umedayik B'Shalosei, so the Rebbe says that the Friedrich Rebbe in this question is specific in the question, Shezehu inyan nifla. He says this is something so wondrous, surprising, and wondrous. This is the unusual language of most of the Mamorim. It says, we have to understand. Why does he use the Lashon? This is so surprising. The question that he's going to ask. Of course, the question that he asks is, how could we say that in the time of Achashverosh and Golus, it was much sustained? They completed and they sustained what they accepted. How could that be? This is such a strong question. The kihoinyan, the kiblu bizman hagolus, masha hachelu, bizman matan Torah. This concept idea that in the time of Golus, they accepted that which they started, the Matan Torah, nifla. This is something totally wondrous. It's not understood. Where do we find, for example, explanation with the word nifla? What does the word nifla mean? Like we explained, when the Pasuk says in the Inyan, loy nifleis goimer v'loy rechayk. So the Pasuk says there are a few languages that the Torah Asher Anochim Etzavcha Hayoim is not nifleis and it's not far away. So what's the difference between the Lashon of loy nifleis and loy rechayk? The richuk v'kiruv hu be'erech zelazeh. When you say something is far or something is far relative to near, are comparable one to another. It's still in the same erech. They're still comparable. It's a little further than closer. So when you say it's not further, you're talking about a limited, a distance which is within the same area. But when we say the Lashon, Avol Nifla Moira al Inyan Shel Haflo v'Havdola, when you say Loy Nifleis, over there it means that this is something separate and removed, distinguished, separate. To the extent that this becomes wondrous to him. That means when you say the word Pella, it's something which is no comparison at all. It's totally different. And that's the language we're using over here, the Rebbe, to ask the question that it's a davar nifla. This is how the extent that it's not understood. And the Rebbe further says, Ukiyadua be'inyan hasviris, to further demonstrate how the word Pella is totally out of the area. It's far, real far, as it's known, with regards to the level of the Sviras. Shebechinas ha'pela, shebechinas pelo, bechinas ha'keser. That the level of Pella is the level of Keser. And when we say upeprotius and specific, bechinas pnimis ha'keser. So Pella is Keser, or more specific, pnimis ha'keser. Shezehu be'ein arich legamri lechol seder ha'ishtalshlus. This is totally uncomparable to all of the order of the hishtalshlus. So we see that Pella, the word Pella, expresses something which is so different and so far away. So from this we can understand also with regards to this wondrous thing the Maimer brings down, that the idea here is something like really not understood. So what is the question? The question is, this is what the Friedrich Rebbe means when he says niflo. What is so surprising? What is so not understood? What is so uncomprehendable? The B'matan Torah, that during the time when the Torah was given, kasher heichelu lasis. At that time, when you're saying that they just began, kibel haYehudim eis asher heichelu lasis. So Matan Torah is the time when they started to do. That's only the beginning. We call that the beginning. But if you examine what was the stance, what was the level of the Yidden, Hoyu Yisrael, the Yidden then were totally in an elevated state, and in a condition and a situation, a very praiseworthy situation. And if you look how it led up to Matan Torah, so it was after the splitting of the sea, the Yitzias Mitzrayim and the exodus of Egypt. All these aspects were tremendous levels of revelation. Shehei minyonim, those were matters, Kriyas Yamsuf and Yitzias Mitzrayim, was ob maveh gestellt as kol echad ve'echad miYisrael. They placed each and every one of the Jewish people, Ves Klolus Am Yisrael, and the Jewish people in general, b'maymed naila b'yoser. It placed us all on a very high standing. Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf, and then Matan Torah. Specifically, the Yitzias Mitzrayim nigla aleihem melech malchei hamlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvei debatz megolo. During the exodus of Egypt, so over there, the king, that king's kings, Hashem himself revealed himself and redeemed them. So it was Melech Malach Hamloch HaKadosh Baruch Hu was nigla. It was revealed to them Hashem himself. That was Yitzias Mitzrayim. And then that was followed, Ubishas Kriyas Yamsuf. And during the splitting of the sea, Shehu Hasiyum V'choysem di Yitzias Mitzrayim, that is the conclusion and the seal of the exodus of Egypt. Because at that point, all the Egyptians drowned, they chased them, and then they all drowned. So that concluded the Kriyas, the Yitzias Mitzrayim. So over there, we say that the Ras or Shivcho al Hayom, even a maidservant was able to see at the sea when the Kriyas Yamsuf, Mashalero Nevim, that even prophets couldn't see. That means that there was a tremendous revelation of godliness for everyone to see, including the Shivcha. Balach has kama v'kama. This was the lead up. And then Matan Torah itself, Balach has kama v'kama, tachlis o'ilu d'bnei Yisrael. The total elevation of the Jewish people Bizman Matan Torah, during the time of Matan Torah, that was even the culmination and even a higher level than what led up then Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsuf. And then we say that that was actually the ultimate level, because there will never be again an experience like by Matan Torah, meaning because that was the ultimate highest level. We say the Matan Torah hoya rak pam achas. The giving of the Torah only took place once. Ukiyadu, as it's known, Matan Torah lo yiyah idapam. It's never gonna be again Matan Torah. That means that that was the highest level of one-time thing. Also in Tanya it's explained. Shebishas Matan Torah kvar hoya me'ein tachlis shleimus ha'olam sheyiyah la'asi loving. That at the time that the Torah was given, this was similar to the ultimate wholesomeness when the world will reach its completion. Its wholesomeness, love is going to be in the future, but that was similar to that. Me'ain was at the time of Matan Torah. There was revelation of godliness, and you can see it with your vividly, what you're actually seeing. So because of these revelations, the Yidden were on the ultimate high level. So that's on one side. So here we're saying that in Matan Torah, they Heichelu Lasis. That was that. Now contrast that with the condition of the Yidden in the time of Golus. Mashen came Bisman HaGolus, as opposed to the time of Golus. Who Haipech Mizeh Mamash is the totally opposite of this. She Yisrael Heim Betachlis HaYerido, that the Yidden are in the lowest descent. Now, in Golus itself, but at that time, that Golus was even worse condition than a regular Golus because the Jews were going to be annihilated. Ubefrad Bisman Haman, especially during the time of Haman, when we were saying the Yidden accepted or Kimu Mashi Kiblu, meaning that's the time that we're saying that the fulfillment and the conclusion of what they started took place. Shabikish Chas v'Sholim, that in times of Haman, he, God forbid, wanted lahashmid, laharigu, laabed eskola Yehudim, to destroy, to kill, and get all the Yidden lost, menarva zokin, from young to old, tavin noshim b'yemechod, little children, women, all in one day. This was a goymer. This was a harsh decree, destroying everybody and one day. And the difficulty was because it was in one day, nobody could escape to another place in which the decree maybe was in the next day, so they can escape for that day. This was a very difficult decree. This was at once for all the Yidden in the entire world. Achashverosh dominated in the dome, meaning in the entire world. So that means that the decree was against all Yidden in all the entire world, as it says in the Medrash. And you could not escape to a place which it was after the Gezerah, had it been not in one day. So you can escape to the place which was already the Gezerah before, since it was in one day in all of the world. So this is the harshest of Golus. Zehu begolus gufa, Golus achinoides. So within Golus itself, that Golus, the Golus in the time of Haman, and the Yidden were in a very terrible exile. So how do we say that that condition versus the condition of Matan Torah, that's when they accepted? And that's the Kimu. And further, the Maimer says, the force of the decree, and what was the spiritual exile, was the decree against education. It was on the matter of education, that where the force of the decree was. As we say in the Medrash, Omar, Haman said, I am going to send my hand to begin with in the children. Why? What was his kavanah? Why is the children chinuch? The hainu the bechdei lahafik chaz v'sholem zemamai. Because in order for him to fulfill, God forbid, his plotting, his bad thought, that quoting from the Megillah, that he thought on the Yidden Rachman l'Islan l'Adam to destroy them. How did he want to accomplish? How did he want to fulfill his plotting against the Jewish people? The start is with his children, school children. And what does it mean, school children? It says the kakavona bazehi hagzeira aklolus inyan achinuch. The intent here, we're not specifically talking only about children that go to school, that go to the house of their teacher, but we're talking about generally the decree against education, against educating. So the Rebbe points out it's not only education of the children, but generally education, even people that are older in years, or quoting the Friedrich Rebbe, they already have white hair, Weissahar, and still they need education. That's also included, not to educate, not to bring people in. Yesh loymar, she'av shebehanal, that even though in the above, when we say tenekes shel beis rabbah, children of their teacher's home, koy al tinuk b'shonim, that literally talks about a child in years. Similar to this is also when we talk about a child who, in matters of Yiddishkeit, he's still a child. He has no familiarity. Even though he could be an adult, year-wise, he can be older. And like my father-in-law, the Rebbe said, he already has white hair. His condition, as far as it relates to Torah mitzvah, is still a child. So now, since we see that they wanted, because they wanted to destroy all the people, so you see that in education, so from the fact that we know that education hinges the existence, the kiyum of the whole Jewish people, that's why when he wanted to destroy them, he wanted to take away chinuch. So we see that the whole sustaining of the Yidden, the hinges on chinuch, on education, move on goydel hamesidus nefesh tzorich liyes al chinuch b'nei Yisrael. We understand how great the self-sacrifice needs to be to educate the Bnei Yisrael. That you must give your soul away totally. Should be, as it says in the pasuk, don't touch my anointed one, which is Elu Tanekis Shel Beis Rabam. Those are the children of the school children, the Isa b'Meseches Shabbos. And that, how do we accomplish to have the children continue, is by making sure that they go to Beis Rabba. This becomes through bringing the children into the proper place, El Beis Rabba, to their house of their teacher. B'shom gufa, while being in the home, it's oifen achinuchu beoifen shel bayis. It's not just bring them to the teacher, but bring them into the Beis Rabba. Bayis means a keva, a permanence. Hainu shatinoikis yikablu merabon, so that the children will receive from their teacher hayisoit, the foundation, the ganzen shtel, the entire standing al kol yimei chayim, for the rest of their life. That's the type of education they will get, that they will experience a base as permanence. So therefore, how could we say kimu v'kiblu? So then they accepted, sustained, and kiblu, es asher החלו לעשות, היה דווקא בזמן הגולוס. And this was specifically in Golus, that is when they achieved that greatness that they can sustain and accept that. Ubefrat bisman Haman, and especially not just in Golus, but in the times of Haman, Yisrael hoyu betachlis hashiflus, when the Yidden were in the totally low level, the Golus, both begashmis, veruchnis, physically and spiritually. This is something very wondrous, very surprising, very difficult to understand. How come? And that's the question explained when the Frierdiker Rebbe asked on the Taich, how could we say that this is the Kimu, Mashe Kiblu Kvar, and also as Asherei Chelu Lasis? How could it be that in such a low level of Golus, to them to achieve a higher madrega, sustaining and acceptance more than what they had during the Matan Torah, as explained, which was the greatest of revelations?